Decemberists, which was one of my favorite bands at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they should still be, right?
I like the earlier stuff better, but The King is Dead was, I think, their last great album.
The fact that they've been around long enough that you can say you preferred the earlier stuff is kind of scary.
I mean, very literary, though. There were a lot of things that because of the Decemberists or Colin Malloy that I checked out, that they recommended. So
absolutely.
For whatever reason, I decided to pick up this thing at probably like one of the lower points in my entire life. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what is an atheist turn to for like some kind of spiritual guidance? Mm-hmm. And when you said it was kind of like a Bible, I've had this book on my desk sitting there like daily affirmation. Like once I finished it, you can easily just kind of turn to a chapter and read it. Like it's sort of self-contained little things that would just kind of read 5 or 10 pages that I have at my desk at work. When I was feeling bad, when I was feeling low, I would just turn to this book and read a little bit. And it doesn't matter if you read it out of order because it's all kind of jumbled up in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's...
Well, that's one of the things that I noticed. So when I think I read the first 40 pages, and I say that as something that I did not dislike the book. I think that I just was not, and I probably continue to not be in a good place to read it. It's like doing hallucinogenics. You have to be in the right frame of mind to be able to have a sort of good trip. If you're not, then you maybe I'm speaking a little. Giving a little too much away. But if you're not in the right headspace, you can have a really bad time.
I want you to elaborate this on a little bit more.
I think this is a tangent I'm agreeing to listen to.
I'm just saying. Okay, so the thing with hallucinogenics.
You were saying about your bad trip.
I'm just saying. So the thing I was always cautioned with hallucinogenics that you have to be in a good frame of mind. Like, you have to be in a very accepting place, in a good place in your head in order to go ahead and do that sort of thing. Otherwise, you should not do it because it will lead to sort of like paranoia and some really bad kind of things going on. Mm-hmm. And so, to speak briefly on my first experience with mushrooms, many years ago at this point, probably prior to you reading Infinite Jest. Most definitely prior to that. The early aughts.
So
I was
Old Man Duran is speaking.
Yeah. Let me tell you about the time that I did the mushrooms.
You don't know this, but this is a very appropriate tangent for Infinite Jest. It's a lot about drugs.
And
so I discovered in the first 40 pages.
Right.
Lots of different drugs.
But a point at which I tried mushrooms was at a time when I was estranged from my now long since ex-wife. I was sleeping on a friend's recliner. I had no place of my own. I was sleeping on my friend's recliner. I had my cat and like a few belongings with me. And a friend of mine who I had like a big crush on suggested the idea of doing mushrooms with her. And at first it was great. We were it was her and me and this other guy, and we were had each taken a little bit, and we're watching Finding Nemo, and that's probably the only time I've seen that film. But it looked fucking amazing.
I bet.
Yeah, it was great. And then sort of like after a while, then I got into a really bad place, and I was starting to be like, okay, I got to get out of here.
Was it the part with the sharks?
To leave. No, I did feel very scared for Nemo at one point. I remember that, but no, I was like trying to leave, and then it degenerated from there.
Okay,
but so. That's that when I was reading this book, that felt like that to me. Like I was not, like I had to be in the right sort of accepting frame of mind to read it and not be having like so much going on, or maybe so much like other stuff in my head, and I did not dislike it, and I fully intend to go back to it.
I think that was the mistake I made when I did the reading group too, because it was starting to feel like homework.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's my problem with reading groups in general, though, or book groups in general, is that then it's like, okay, I remember anytime I had to read something by a certain date, then I was reading everything else except that.
Yeah.
But
like, you don't want to be told what to do, right? I want to do it when I want to do it.
Exactly.
But and I would argue that the exception to this rule, and I'm not saying that because like we're all friends with her or anything, but Barb Vandenberg's reading group is never feels like homework to me.
Well, what's interesting is that
Because she picks really good books.
She picks good books, but I still can't help but feel that way. It's just, it's like if I, I'm gonna have to just go ahead and discover something on my own. It's not gonna be, I don't know. And usually it's because I end up, I can't. If there's a discussion about a book, if I feel like people have just missed on it or are talking, like I don't know, I get very. Yeah, I'm not a big book.
I think I have a sense of like your literary taste more than Jason's. So I think there are a lot of things in this that I know you would like, given like if you give it enough time. But it also, in the same way that Michael Short stuff has like this mix of like highbrow humor, lowbrow humor, sadness, and like profundity. Like those are all, and like in satire. Like those are all things that like David Foster Wallace, especially Infinite Jest, is all about. It's not that saying it's reading this book is the same as watching The Good Place. It's not, but like he acknowledges it as like his number one influence. So
I'm curious, what do you think my literary tastes are?
I don't know. I don't think I've heard you talk about what you like to read very much.
Well, don't talk much about like.
I was trapped in Jared's bedroom for like an hour while my wife recorded a podcast here. So I looked at all
the
his
caveat for that. Let's just say.
You mean the multiple books that are on his shelf?
Yeah.
When I babysit his cats, like that's what I do.
First of all, cat, singular. Susu
Cat.
might be fat, but she's still one cat.
Yeah.
books and cats, books and cats, and books and cats, and books and cats.
I don't know what that reference is.
You know, Boots and Cats.
It's
YouTube video.
Well, it's because he's white and he doesn't listen to rap music.
We're all fucking white, dude.
It's a YouTube
I think
video.
I have a better tan than either one of you.
We'll go on YouTube after we're done here.
Okay. Anyway, I do have a lot of books, and more. Thanks to the various podcasts, more people have been over and judged my collections of things than probably either one of you guys.
I know. Lately, it's and to answer your question.
You didn't ask a question.
Well, I
you
guess
just made a
not.
statement.
Oh, that he doesn't know anything about, because I mean,
Tell us what your literary
What
tastes
are your
Jason.
literary tastes, Jason? Please.
I mean, secretly, it's all Michael Crichton and like.
We've talked about Crichton on this podcast
because I was like, when I was a teen, like I read nothing but Michael Crichton, Timothy Zahn's Star Wars books,
Oh, I read
I'm with you
those.
so far.
Yeah.
Say Stephen King.
and Stephen King,
Yeah,
of course,
okay.
and John Grisham. Because
I
John
have never
Grisham was
read a
quite.
John Grisham
Not so
book.
much.
John Grisham was like the thing in the
My parents like
80s.
that, so it must not have been cool.
Well, I mean, they made many good movies from his first 4 books.
They made a few good movies and many bad movies out of his.
Name one bad John Grisham movie. One really awful one. You can't, can you?
Put me on the spot.
Yeah,
you
'cause you
bastard.
can.
You son of a bitch.
You can't, because you know what? Because it doesn't exist. So, even the Pelican Brief, which is like,
Which one was the Pelican? Was that the one with Julia Roberts?
yeah,
I kinda
which
like
is
that
like,
one.
which could never ever happen in real life. It's
Julia Roberts and Denzel Washington. What's not to
not
like about it?
not so much that, but it's like the plot could never happen in real life. It's absolutely bonkers.
Okay.
It's made believable because of the assured direction of Alan J. Pakula and its co-stars, which are, as you mentioned, Denzel Washington and Julia Roberts. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about me and my literary
So
taste.
13-year-old
Yes.
Jason lines up pretty much with me.
Except
What is
for-
40-year-old Jason?
40-year-old Jason,
That we should make that movie, The 40-Year-Old Jason.
that would be the most. 40-year-old Jason would be the most depressing movie you've ever watched.
Well, it has a happy ending and gets a fucking job working for the man.
No, that's the sequel. That's the 41-year-old Jason. We're talking
Fine.
about Jason.
We could say
last
the
year.
40-something-year-old Jason and just encompass both years.
Yeah. That'd be like a very sad German film by like Fassbinder.
Okay.
I don't know, there came like a point or I started getting into like in my mid-20s where I started getting into like Eggers, like and McSweeney's. So I would I read Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius. I think kind of scrambled my brain a little bit, like, and what books could do, because there's a lot that book does. And I've since then, like, it's been so the book that I think influences a lot of season 3, which is called We Shall Know Our Velocity.
Okay.
Which is about two brothers who whose parents have just died, inherited a small fortune. So I'll leave it at that because I don't want to ruin it for.
Okay.
And they bought a zoo. Oh,
no,
sorry.
You're getting a little close to home, friend.
Yeah, sorry. I knew what I was doing.
You knew what you were doing because you know what? Because you're starting to touch on that Cameron Crowe type business.
Well, also Bridget Fonda and Singles. I mean, we could have a whole separate podcast about Cameron Crowe films.
Yeah, well, and the greatest movie ever made, Jerry Maguire.
Okay, as far as Cameron Crowe taste goes, I like the music ones. I like Say Anything. I like Singles. I like.
No, just stop because we're still talking about me.
Okay,
Oh,
we got Dave Eggers. So
Yeah.
Okay,
So we got Dave Eggers. I like Franzen a lot. It's funny because like all these
Do
authors,
you like Franzen?
I do. Like I like the corrections, and I really, really, really like Freedom. Freedom, I think from what Chris has told me in conversations we've had about Infinite Jest,
Okay.
Freedom most matches the
So
structure.
you've read Freedom as well?
I have not. I have like 3 Franzen books on my shelf on the to be read stack that I all bought for like $2. Because Oprah picked it's a book club,
Yeah.
and you can flood the market with Franzen books.
True. Yes.
and that's also like why I'm reluctant to admit. Well, there are several reasons why I'm reluctant to admit how much I like Franzen. One of them being the fact that
he
is
Oprah author though who tried to like get her to take it back.
Right, he didn't want
basically.
it. He didn't want his success to
and
be
then,
based on Oprah.
and then when she did it again for Freedom, he like, well, shit, I gotta sell books.
I guess I'm a millionaire now.
Yeah,
Like whatever, bought my last house. I can
like-
buy the next one.
I mean, my house in Santa Cruz, doesn't pay for itself. I mean,
So there's a correspondence between, literally writing letters back and forth between Franzen and Wallace.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were contemporaries, which is why I was curious about Franzen. I just haven't, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, I haven't gotten into Franzen yet.
and from what you told me about Infinite Jest with its different point of views and its different writing styles, I think Freedom mostly closely seems to me like, given the benefit of hindsight, closely hews to that structure, like different points of views, different writing styles. I mean, there's a whole chapter, like a whole section of the book that's all diary entries from the point of view of the female character in Freedom. The other one, I've read his latest one, Purity. That one just kind of falls kind of flat. And I'm also reluctant. One of the reasons I'm reluctant to admit how much I like Franzen is because he's also a giant
dick.
Yes, he's a dick in real life. He's a little what's the term I'm thinking of because I'm on the spot and I've had a couple for being egregiously male and insensitive.
Egregiously male. That's the first time I've heard it
Misogynistic?
put
Yes,
that way.
he's very He's a little misogynistic.
Okay.
I think he's learning, but I mean, it doesn't bode well when.
Admittedly, Wallace had some of those problems. Like, there's been criticism in the last few years of Wallace based on how he treated relationships in his life. That it could come out in like sort of a biography of him, which is hard. He's dead now, so it's hard to like defend himself, right?
Yeah.
He can't. He passed away before the Me Too movement.
Exactly. He didn't get a chance to kind of evolve through that.
Right. But what you were saying about Franzen's latest book not being great, like, how do you top? Your second novel is like regarded as like one of the best things ever, and like, how do you top that?
Well, I mean, his second novel is The Corrections. His third novel is Freedom, and Freedom is like that.
There were a lot of years between those two.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it took a lot. I mean, he's written like essays and
Yeah, there were different collections and things in between.
so moving on to from Franzen, I really like Michael Chabon.
Oh, Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay is one of my favorite
Yeah.
books.
That's a great book.
And Yiddish Policeman's Union is really good. Telegraph Avenue,
I like Telegraph Avenue.
I do too, but it is a little like
Problematic.
look at me. Well, well, it's problem. Like it's like you dared me to do this. Here's what